I think this is about my third recording of the day, and as they go on, I just look tireder and tireder. So, what are we going to do today? We are going to have a bit of revision on how to use AO5, whoa, that's big, in our essays. That's really big. And we're going to do this by referring to the essay that you all read by Craig Stevens or Stephans on Satan, with lots of references to C.S. Lewis. And we know that you did this homework because you handed it in and you made some good notes. Some of you did it by hand, I know. But I've decided I'll use that one as a bit of a model, and then you all know what I'm referring to. Okay, so first thing I want to say, though, is to remind you that AO5 is not a dominant assessment objective for this part of the exam. It's not worth masses. However, it can often be used to show the difference between a good essay and an excellent essay. AO5 we usually think of as critical responses, but what else would I be expecting you to refer to as AO5 for this essay? What is A Doll's House? What is it? It's a play, so to productions. That's why we've been watching the Carrie Cracknell, so that you can refer to that. And any other, there's a few other like series and things that are on YouTube. I'm not saying you should watch all of them, but you might want to at least watch kind of maybe it's the endings, the door slamming endings. Okay, right. Where are we? So some of this, I just remembered I haven't changed a couple of things. It's going to annoy me. We've already done this stage of the AO5, as in you've already read the essay that I gave you and you've made your notes. This slide is what I'll be using with my first years as well, who'll be doing it kind of from the very start. So those are a couple of things that you can look at whenever you're reading a critical essay to think about whether you agree with it or not. I didn't have to do any AO5 for my A-level, so that was a steep learning curve once I got to university. But this is a part of the A-level that I think helps prepare you for the next level, whether that's uni or a job where you're going to have to maybe read other things and make evaluations and critical decisions. I've adapted this from a Hamlet one that I did a couple of years ago, but let's just take a moment to look at David Tennant because it's always worth a little look in his direction. Again, so this is from a lesson last year where students would then have been discussing the essay, but I would encourage you lot to do this as much as possible with anything that you're reading, sharing it, talking it over with somebody. Has this class got a group chat?
No.
Oh, that's sad.
We have a table. We've got a table one.
I think you need a class group chat again. I think that could be really interesting. What do you mean on what? On what platform?
Yeah.
On a Snapchat. No, I feel like everyone.
Ben and his opinions once again. But if it's easier to use, anyway, I'm encouraging you to use a chat group like that to go beyond just, talking about how awesome I am, to discussing homeworks, etc. Right? Okay. So one of the first things that we do with an essay like this, and I know that I'm going over this and we've done stuff like this from before, but it's worth reminding you, is we often start with the quotations, don't we? Start highlighting things. Oh, I like that. Oh, I don't know what that means. Oh, that's a load of rubbish, right? So we start there, which is what everybody should be doing. But some of you I've seen like to go a bit mad with the highlighter, and there's often very little left that isn't highlighted. So try and get into the habit of being judicious, of nipping out little quotations that you'd like to use. Yeah, you're guilty of that, aren't you? It's all so good, I'm just going to highlight it all. Okay, I'm annoyed now because I've still not changed. I might have to change it. I am. I can't stand looking at that again. So this is the quotation that I have taken from that essay. It's quite a straightforward one. There's nothing particularly contentious about it. Why else do I like this as a bit of AO5? What else is it doing? Look at the dates. It's also acting as a bit of context, yeah. So it's a really good one. 18th and 19th century critics had become enamoured with Milton's Satan as something of a tragic, misunderstood protagonist. That's pretty straightforward. It's factual. It's not really much to kind of debate, but we've brought it out. We need to think about how we could use it. Okay. So here's the bit that, this is the point, I think, where a lot of students become a little bit unstuck with how you use AO5. And it's because you can't use AO5, I don't think, until you know what your own AO1, AO5 is. If all you have is an essay full of other people's opinions, it's not your essay, is it? So when I was redoing this on Sunday morning, I started to think, well, what would, if I was a student and I was wanting to use this AO5, what would I need to have in place first? And what I'd want is a really good set of revision notes on Satan, because that's what my quotation refers to. So if we open this up, this is why I've made a copy for everybody. Here we go. And I've set it as a homework. I haven't set a date. All I'm saying is, if when you filled this in, you want me to print it out, submit it to the classroom, then I can A, check that what you've done is good and give you some feedback if need be, and B, I can print it out for you. And I've done it as an electronic document because it might be something that you add to over time. Maybe you don't ask me to print these out till next March. You're just going to keep them electronic and keep building on them. Equally, you might say, thank you, Julie, for starting this off, but I don't want to use it in this format. Can I adapt it? Yes, of course you can. But what would I like to see in there? Right. Well, first of all, I'd like to see key quotations. I also just put that picture in because it looked really cool. I can't make my jokes when I'm on camera, can I?
Well, who's it going to?
Well, it's going into the public domain, Abby, so anybody. I've only put 3 quotations on there, but you can have as many as you want. And at this point, you're going to ask me, how many quotations should I have? Well, I don't know how good your memories are, so I'm not sure. I'd say 30 is way too many and 3 is not enough. How many do you think you can remember? Look for quotations that will do quite a bit of work for you, that can be used in different ways. If you want me to pin down to a number, I'd say 8.
In the whole text?
Yeah. As long as you can use them. Right, what else do we want? Actually, I'm going to add to this. You really need to think about the kinds of synonyms that you could start using to describe Satan, because they will help you create AO1 points. So we can describe Satan as malicious, frustrated, psychologically complex. And again, that's what I mean about, adding to this sheet as you go along. We also probably want to have a think about why they're there. What is Satan doing in this text? What's his function? And I've offered a couple of suggestions. And particularly for this part of the exam, I'm probably going to be interested in what the readers in Milton's time, what a 17th century reader would have thought, as in, quite simply, Satan was real to them. To us, Satan might be a metaphor, a motif. Even to a devout Christian, we might not fully believe in a fully realised Satan, but we understand the concept of Satan representing sin and temptation. But to the majority of 17th century readers, he was real and he could appear to you and tempt you and run off with your pig. We want some AO5. We don't want masses. I've put 3 examples there with the link of where I got them because I got them from Quizlet. The world has already done the AO5 for me. I don't need to kill myself over it. However, we've given you other stuff as well. You've got the Anabia extract to read. We'll be giving you more stuff like that as we go along. But add to that, obviously you're going to want to then make it talk to Doll's House. And then I would be using this part of the sheet to practice things that I want to write about Satan. So do I want to think about Satan and his, maybe I want to make a point about Satan and power. Or maybe I want to make a point about power and I'm going to use Satan and Krogstad to illustrate my point. I'm going to say something now that might upset you. Hand on heart, I think that you should do this for all the main characters of all the main texts you study. I think if you had a revision sheet like this on Offred, on Winston, on Nora, I think you'd be very, very well prepared.
Really upset me.
Has it? Has it made you want to cry? I don't know if someone else has just smiled at me because they've already done this or are planning to. But no. But can you imagine how well prepared you'd feel if you had this on all the characters? Because if I'm honest, you've got this. You've got all the information you need. You just haven't put it all in one place. So that's why I've given you access. You've got your own copy of this. So then you would just make a copy and change it. And where you've got AO3 here for the contemporary view, you might just take that bit out and put AO3. AO3 for Winston. You might even then want to do something similar but with themes. Adam, you've been doing a bit of revision over half term. Do you think this would help putting it all in one place like this?
Yeah, it does quite well that way, hasn't it?
Yeah. I'm not saying you can't do other things. I'm not saying to stop doing your flashcards and your mind maps and all of that, but that's how my brain would work. So it's there if you want to use that model. Okay. So let's go back to our slideshow. So now we're ready to think about how to use AO5 because we've already had some ideas of our own. Yeah, we can put ourselves against other critics and ideas. So here's the most straightforward. Shall I move me? I've moved. Here's the most straightforward way of using a critic's perspective. Stephens suggests that critics had become enamoured of Satan, seeing him as something of a tragic, misunderstood protagonist, which can be supported in Book 9. Now, if you do that, you will be rewarded in the exam. You've used AO5, but you're definitely not getting into Band 5 or 6. And you'd have to do at least a bit more to get into Band 4. So Band 6 is excellent and consistently detailed. Band 5 is good. Band 4 is competent. And Band 3 is some. So it's all right. That's competent, isn't it? It's a competent use of a critic. But it's not setting the world alight. So what we want to do, we want to be able to synthesize a critic's view into our own. How do we do that? Well, I suggest that we use this 3-stage approach. You start with your idea. Many critics have viewed Satan as the epic's protagonist, which is easy to defend. Here's my AO1, if we consider his role as that of liberator. So there's my AO1 tick. I've put that idea forward. Indeed, Calvin referred to him as an engine of courage hardy And Shelley went so far as to suggest that Satan is a moral being. I've underpinned that with a couple of critics. I'm going to move me again. Getting about all over the place today. I don't know why I went a bit Sarah Millican there. However, it's hard to conceive of Milton, especially as a devout Puritan, deliberately presenting him as such. It's good, isn't it? You're impressed? Happy is. Perhaps a more plausible reading is that he subverts the role of the epic hero to warn his readers against the dangers of temptation. So I've started with my idea. Oh, look at this. Woo. Started with my idea here. I underpinned it by referring to a couple of other critics, and then I developed it further by saying, actually, even though some people say he's the protagonist, I'm not really sure that's what's happening here. Who's creaking? Is that your bones?
It's kind of both. If I move my arm, it creates his table.
Why don't you sit on your hands?
No, I don't want to crush him. I've got to be able to use this to type.
So can you see the difference between that and that previous slide? Oh, God. Where we've just tagged it on. You've gone really quiet. Is it because the video's on? Oh, they're on. For the purposes of the tape, the witness is now nodding his head.
Can that be off the record?
Off the record.
Scratch it.
Be redacted later. Who, give me a little bit of feedback though. Where are you in terms of those two options? Not options, formats. I know some of you are already here and can do this, but I know some of you are here. What do we think needs to happen to move that across?
I think personally it's a bit how to word and phrase the idea in a top and level way, because like, the concept can be there, but sometimes if you say, "Oh, that's the level 6," that's like a band 6 topic sentence. So I find sometimes that I can word it. I'm unable to word it in one way that appears less sophisticated and less precise than that.
So that's where I'm hoping that working on those synonyms will help, so that you've got a wider range of vocabulary. Satan is evil. Well, is he? Is he just evil? There's a bit more to it.
Yeah, I don't think it's much more the vocabulary. It's more
the phrasing.
Just the phrasing of it, and like where to put your point, and then what to put after that.
Right.
So it's not. It opens a line of argument, but it doesn't kind of close it off.
Yeah, I find it hard to kind of concise evaluate, and I'll start, but I have to write loads. I can't just write, because I want to like a few lines and then fill into my AO5 and go on.
So if we look at this one, is this what you mean, Archie? Is that like this is a good example, isn't it, of opening it?
Yeah.
Because I know what you mean. Sometimes you close yourself off in an argument before you've even got going. And actually the closing off happens here, where I say, however, it's actually this. Or it might be, and, it might be just fully supporting it. I hate to say it, but I think one of the only ways that you get good at that is by constantly reading how other people do it and copying it, literally emulating their style. So, over the next couple of weeks when you're doing your assessments, I'll be asking to borrow bits of people's essays. If I think, oh, that's worded brilliantly. And I do that. I look at how a student has worded something, and I think, yeah, that's what I've been trying to say. And then it's a bit of copying that style until it becomes your own style, adopting it. I guess there's a fine line, isn't there, between plagiarism, just blatantly stealing someone's ideas, and then being affected by somebody's style. And you should be reading such a range of stuff anyway that your style. You don't write now how you used to write when you were 7, do you?
You don't have
Very advanced. Yeah.
You were not advanced 7-year-olds. I'm looking at you all
Everyone
now.
is very stupid 17.
No, I was advanced at age 7, but I
You peaked.
Yeah, I've regressed.
7, I was writing at Milton's level. And I
One of the smart kids in primary school who just slowly average out.
That was me, if I'm honest, yeah.
Because you never told you have to work. So then we actually have
We
to
never
do
learned how to
work.
revise because you just
Yeah, you always got it. You always just got it from lessons. You never had to put any work in. Then when it came to actual vision, you never knew how to do it because you never entire time pissing about.
Well, maybe you just need to go back to that. Stop worrying about it. Don't overthink it. Don't think that there's a way to revise. It's just how you want to do it.
I'll just go.
Can you email that to my mother?
No. I mean, going back to this sheet here. This whole thing that I've put together was a complete process on Sunday morning. So what happened was I found this slideshow on Hamlet. So I was sharing it with I was giving it to a colleague in another college, and I went, oh, I forgot I made this on Hamlet. I wonder if I should adapt this for my second years. Oh, I'll have a go. And then I had to work backwards. And then when I got to this bit, I was like, the bit that I've missed out all the time is how the students end up with their own stuff. Now, I know that you can come up with your own ideas because you do it in lessons all the time. You're always giving me really good ideas, aren't you? Yeah, you are. But at what point are you stopping and going, okay, I've got those ideas, I made good notes. Am I doing something sensible with them now? Revision isn't something you do in May. Revision is something that you would do tonight. Think about all those discussions we've just had about the end of book 10. Well, are you going to move from just having annotated the side of your book to making some good bullet points about it and some AO4 links to Doll's House? It's not a tag-on thing at the end of a year. It's ongoing.
Silence as everyone realises shit.
She didn't swear.
Can you beat all the things then? I think that'd be so funny.
Yeah, my editing skills are that good.
What would be worse enough for you to go to the Ephesus Blue Team?
Just going to pause. So on that note, you can refer back to this for what it's worth, and thank you and good night.